In the summer of 1980, in the small town of Willow Creek, Ohio, Sarah Thompson, stood in the living room of our modest ranch-style home clutching a crisp envelope. Inside was my study abroad certificate for a prestigious literature program at Oxford University, a dream I'd chased through years of night classes at the local community college. As a woman in 1980s America, opportunities like this were rare, especially for someone like me, a 28-year-old mother with only an associate's degree. The certificate felt like a golden ticket promising a future beyond the confines of Willow Creek's dusty streets and the endless cycle of laundry, PTA meetings, and church potlucks. My heart raced with possibility, imagining lectures in ancient halls and discussions about Shakespeare under Oxford's spires. That same afternoon, my husband James, a respected city councilman known for his charm and pressed suits, sat me down at our Formica kitchen table. His hazel eyes, usually sharp with confidence, were red-rimmed and teary. "Sarah," he said, his voice breaking, "I've got bad news. The doctor found something terminal cancer." The words hit like a punch to the gut. James, only 32, was the pillar of our family, our daughter Emily's hero, the man who'd promised to love me forever. "There's a specialist in London, Dr. Reynolds," he continued, gripping my hand. "He can save me, but his condition is steep. His daughter Olivia needs your spot at Oxford to join his research team. She's a Yale grad, Sarah. She'd make the most of it." I stared at him, my mind spinning. The certificate in my hand suddenly felt heavy, like it anchored me to a choice I didn't want to make. In the 1980s, America women were expected to put family first. Society whispered it in every magazine article, every sermon, every neighbor's well-meaning advice. "What about Emily?" James pressed, his voice soft but urgent. "She's only 6. If I'm gone, what'll happen to you two?" I thought of Emily's gap-toothed smile, her pigtails bouncing as she played in our backyard. I couldn't bear the thought of her growing up without her father. Tears stung my eyes as I nodded. "Okay, James, I'll give it up. For you. For us." The next 3 years were a blur of sacrifice. I quit my part-time job at the library to care for James, full-time, managing his treatments and keeping our household afloat. I borrowed thousands from my parents and friends to cover medical bills, working odd jobs, sewing alterations, cleaning houses, while James rested. Emily became my anchor. Her laughter was the only thing keeping me sane. But in 1983, everything shattered. I walked into our living room to find James healthy and radiant, holding Olivia, who'd just returned from Oxford. Her sleek blonde hair and designer coat screamed privilege, starkly contrasting my faded apron and calloused hands. Worse, Emily ran to her arms wide, shouting, "Mommy, Olivia!" My heart stopped. James kissed Olivia, his eyes alight with a love I hadn't seen in years. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Numb, I stumbled out of the house, my vision blurred with tears. The world felt like it was collapsing. I didn't see the delivery truck speeding down Main Street until it was too late. The last thing I knew was the screech of tires and a blinding pain. As my life faded, I realized I'd been a pawn in their game. James had never been sick, and Olivia had stolen my dream with his help. My sacrifice had meant nothing. Hey, if this story's hitting you as hard as it hit me, smash that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more stories of betrayal and redemption. Your support keeps us sharing tales like Sarah's stories that remind us to fight for our dreams. Now let's see what happens next. When my eyes fluttered open, I was back in our Willow Creek living room in the summer of 1980 with sunlight streaming through the curtains. The study abroad certificate was in my hands, its paper still warm from the university's printer. My heart pounded, not excited this time, but with a strange pulsating warmth that seemed to radiate from within. It was as if the universe moved by the weight of my unfulfilled dreams, and the regret that had consumed me as I died had woven time backward, granting me a second chance to rewrite my story. I was 28 again, standing on the precipice of the same choice, but this time I knew the truth. James burst through the door, his face a mask of rehearsed grief. "Sarah," he said, pulling me into his arms, the doctor called. "It's cancer. Terminal." His voice cracked, and his 6-foot frame seemed to shrink as he sobbed. "I'm not afraid of dying, but what'll happen to you and Emily?" In my past life, I'd crumbled my love for him, closing my eyes to his lies. I'd borrowed money, called every doctor in Ohio, and handed my Oxford spot to Olivia without a second thought. But now a cold clarity settled over me. His tears were a performance, his words a script crafted to manipulate me. A flash of disgust curled in my chest, but I played along, patting his back gently. "Don't worry, James," I said, my voice steady. "I'll take care of Emily." He pulled back, his eyes narrowing. "You don't seem sad," he said almost accusingly. I forced a sigh, my face a careful mask of sorrow. What good is sadness? This must be fate. I get Oxford, and you get this diagnosis. Life's cruel. His expression faltered, unprepared for my calm resolve. In my past life, I'd been a wreck scrambling to save him while he and Olivia plotted behind my back. They'd used my sacrifice to fund her education, leaving me to work 3 jobs, factory shifts, waitressing, cleaning, while James and his family spent the money I borrowed. I'd been a fool pouring my soul into a family that betrayed me. Later that evening, I overheard James in the backyard, his voice low as he spoke to Emily. "Sweetie, isn't Aunt Olivia so lovely? She loves you like a mom." Emily giggled, clutching a lollipop Olivia had given her. "Can we call her Mommy Olivia?" she asked. My stomach churned. In my past life, I dismissed it as childish innocence, but now I saw it for what it was. James grooming our daughter to replace me. I stepped outside, forcing a smile. "Emily, you like Aunt Olivia's treats, don't you?" She nodded, her eyes bright. James shot me a nervous glance. "It's just a kid's word, Sarah. Olivia's good to her." I nodded, but inside I was done. This time I wouldn't let them steal my future. The next morning in Willow Creek, Ohio, summer 1980, I sat at the kitchen table, the Oxford Study Abroad certificate tucked safely in my purse, the weight of my reborn knowledge pressed against me sharp and clear. In my past life, I'd been a trusting fool, believing James's cancer diagnosis without question. I'd spent 3 years working myself to the bone factory shifts, waitressing at the diner, cleaning houses after midnight to pay off loans I'd taken for his treatments. All the while, he and his lover Olivia had orchestrated a scheme to send her to Oxford in my place, using my sacrifice to fund her education and their lavish spending. Now armed with the truth, I watched James with new eyes, his every word dripping with calculated deceit. He paced the living room, his broad shoulders hunched in a performance of despair. "Sarah," he said, his voice low and urgent, "there's a way to save me. Dr. Reynolds. Olivia's father is a world-class oncologist in London. He'll treat me only if Olivia takes your spot at Oxford. She's a Yale grad trained for this kind of opportunity." His eyes searched mine, expecting the same panic I'd shown in my past life. Back then, I'd called every doctor in Ohio, borrowed thousands from my parents, and handed over my certificate without hesitation, desperate to save him. This time, I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "Fate's cruel, isn't it, James?" I said, my voice steady but laced with sorrow. "I get this chance at Oxford, and you get a diagnosis. Life's full of twists." James blinked, thrown off by my calm. "You don't seem upset," he said, a hint of accusation in his tone. I sighed, crafting a mask of grief. "What good would crying do? I'll make sure Emily's okay. We'll get through this." His jaw tightened, clearly unprepared for my detachment. I'd been a whirlwind of tears and action in my past life, calling in favors and exhausting myself to find a cure. Now I saw his words for what they were, a blunt push to manipulate me into giving up my dream again. The audacity of it sparked a quiet fury in me, but I kept it hidden, biding my time. Later that afternoon, I caught James in the backyard, kneeling beside Emily as she played with her dolls. Her pigtails bobbed as she giggled, clutching a lollipop Olivia had given her. "Daddy, when's Mommy Olivia coming over?" she asked, her voice bright. My stomach twisted. In my past life, I'd brushed off her words as childish confusion, comforting her when she cried. Now I understand James's role in her betrayal. "Sweetie," he said softly, "Aunt Olivia loves you so much. Doesn't she make you happy?" Emily nodded, her eyes wide. "She gives me candy and says I can stay up late." James glanced at me standing in the doorway and quickly added, "But Mommy Sarah's the best." His nervous smile betrayed him. I stepped forward, forcing a tight smile. "Emily, you really like Aunt Olivia's treats, don't you?" She nodded again, oblivious to the tension. "She's fun," Emily said, popping the lollipop back in her mouth. James stood brushing grass off his slacks. "Sarah, don't take it personally. Olivia's just good with kids. Emily doesn't mean anything by it." His words were smooth, but I saw through them. He'd encouraged Emily to see Olivia as a mother figure planting seeds to replace me. In 1980s America, where mothers were judged by their devotion, this betrayal cut deeper than his affair. I nodded, my lips curling into a faint, bitter smile. Sure, James, it's fine. But inside, my resolve hardened. I wouldn't let them steal my future again. That evening, I sat alone in our bedroom, the certificate on my nightstand. The memory of my past life flooded back, not just the betrayal, but the grinding exhaustion. I'd worked 3 jobs to repay the loans, waking at dawn and collapsing past midnight. My hands had calloused, my dreams had faded, and my health had crumbled under the weight of their lies. James's family had treated our home like a hotel, expecting meals and clean laundry, while contributing nothing. Olivia had lived comfortably abroad, funded by my sacrifice, while I became a shadow of myself. Now reborn, I vowed to protect my chance at Oxford, a program that promised not just education, but a career as a literature professor, a rare path for a woman in a town where most were expected to stay home. I wouldn't be their pawn again. I stood in our small backyard the next day, watching Emily chase fireflies as the Ohio dusk settled over Willow Creek. Her laughter echoed, but it felt distant, like a melody from a life I no longer lived. My study abroad certificate was hidden in a locked drawer safe from James's reach. I'd decided to pursue my dream at Oxford, but the path wasn't simple. In the 1980s, America, women like me, small-town mothers with community college degrees, faced scrutiny for daring to prioritize ourselves. Neighbors whispered about neglectful mothers who left their families for ambition. The local church preached that a woman's place was at home. Even my mother had warned me, Sarah, don't rock the boat. You've got a good man and a sweet girl. But I'd seen the truth in my past life. James's betrayal, Olivia's theft of my opportunity, and Emily's growing allegiance to her mommy, Olivia. I couldn't go back to that. Emily ran to me, clutching a plastic bag of gummy bears, her cheeks flushed. Look, Mommy, Aunt Olivia gave me these. Her excitement stung. In my past life, I'd gently taken the candies away, explaining how sugar caused cavities, only to have her pout and run to James. Now I saw her preference for Olivia differently. From Emily's 6-year-old perspective, Olivia was a fairy godmother, generous with treats, lenient with bedtimes, and always ready with a smile. She'd visit with shiny gifts, whispering to Emily about Mommy Sarah being too strict. James encouraged it, letting Olivia take Emily to the county fair or buy her ice cream, things I couldn't afford on my library clerk's salary. To Emily, Olivia was fun, while I was the rule enforcer who said no. I knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her face. You love those gummy bears, don't you? I asked softly. She nodded, her eyes bright. Aunt Olivia says I can have as many as I want. The words sliced through me, but I kept my voice steady. That's nice of her. James appeared at the back door, his expression wary. Sarah, don't make a big deal out of it, he said, his tone defensive. Olivia's just being kind. Emily's a kid, she says things. I stood, meeting his gaze. Sure, James. Just a kid. But the bitterness in my chest grew. In my past life, I'd chased after Emily when she cried, soothing her, telling her daddy didn't mean to yell. I saw how James had orchestrated their bond, teaching her to call Olivia Mom behind my back. I turned to Emily, who was nibbling a gummy bear. Emily, why do you like Aunt Olivia so much? I asked, curious to hear her reasoning. She tilted her head, thinking. She's nice. She lets me watch cartoons late and gives me candy. You always say no. Her honesty was a dagger, but it clarified everything. Olivia's indulgence made her the hero, while my discipline, born of love and necessity, made me the villain in her eyes. In the 1980s at Willow Creek, where mothers were expected to be selfless, Emily's rejection felt like a public failure. I'd spent years putting her first, staying up to sew her Halloween costumes, reading her bedtime stories even when exhausted. Yet Olivia's bribes had won her heart. I straightened, my resolve firming. Enjoy your candy, Emily, I said, my voice cool. She blinked, sensing a shift, but ran off to play. James stepped closer, his brow furrowed. Sarah, you're acting cold. What's wrong with you? I didn't answer, turning back to the house. I'd already contacted the city's personnel office where James worked to file for divorce. The Oxford program was state-sponsored, tied to my job as a library clerk, giving me leverage. In 1980s America, divorce was a scandal, especially for a woman leaving a respectable man like James. But I'd written a detailed application documenting his affair with Olivia. The department head, Mr. Carter, had sighed when I submitted it. Sarah, we've heard rumors about James and that Yale girl. Your divorce will be approved. That Oxford spot is yours. You earned it through merit. Back inside, I locked the certificate in my desk, my heart heavy but determined. Emily's preference for Olivia wasn't her fault. She was a child swayed by sweets and James's encouragement. But I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for a family that didn't value me. In my past life, I'd lost everything, my dreams, my health, my identity, to James's lies and Olivia's greed. This time, I'd board that plane to Oxford no matter the cost. The whispers of Willow Creek's judgment couldn't stop me. I was done living in their shadows. The morning sun filtered through the lace curtains of our Willow Creek home, casting delicate shadows across the kitchen table where I sat sipping bitter coffee. It was July 1980, and my Oxford Study Abroad certificate, safely locked in my desk, represented more than a chance to study literature. It was my ticket to a life beyond the stifling expectations of small-town Ohio. In the 1980s, American women like me were judged harshly for prioritizing ambition over family. The local newspaper ran columns praising devoted mothers, while church sermons reminded us that a woman's duty was to her husband and children. My mother had called the night before, her voice heavy with concern. "Sarah, you've got a good man in James. Please don't throw it all away for some fancy degree." But I knew the truth. James's terminal cancer was a lie, and his affair with Olivia had already poisoned our family. I'd filed for divorce through the city's personnel office, where James served as a councilman. The Oxford program, a state-sponsored initiative to train future educators, was tied to my library clerk position, giving me leverage. My application, a meticulous 5-page document detailing James's infidelity with Olivia, a Yale graduate who'd wormed her way into our lives, sat with Mr. Carter, the department head. Yesterday, he'd called me into his office, his face grim but kind. "Sarah, we've all seen James cozying up to that girl at the town hall. Your divorce is approved and the Oxford spot is yours. You earned it through years of night classes. Don't let anyone take that from you." His words, rare support in a town quick to judge women, steeled my resolve. Back at home, Emily burst through the back door, her sneakers muddy from the yard. She clutched a bag of gummy bears, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mommy, look what Aunt Olivia got me." Her joy, once a balm to my heart, now felt like a betrayal. In my past life, I'd spent 3 years pouring every ounce of myself into this family, working grueling jobs to pay off loans for James's fake treatments, while Olivia studied abroad on my dime. Emily swayed by Olivia's gifts, and leniency had called her mom, a wound that still bled. I knelt beside her, forcing a smile. "Those look yummy, Emily. Enjoy them." She blinked, surprised by my lack of protest. In my past life, I'd taken the candies away, lecturing her about cavities, only to have her run to James, pouting. James appeared in the doorway, his pressed shirt and confident stride, a stark contrast to my faded jeans and tired eyes. "Sarah, you won't make a fuss about the candy, are you?" he asked, his tone light but edged with caution. I stood, meeting his gaze. "No, James. Let her have them." Emily hesitated, sensing the shift, then scampered off to her room. James frowned. "You're acting strange. What's going on?" I didn't answer, turning to wash dishes. The truth was, I was done fighting for a daughter who preferred Olivia's indulgence over my love. In the 1980s, Willow Creek, a mother's worth was measured by her sacrifice, but I'd sacrificed enough: my dreams, health, and identity. I wouldn't do it again. I met with Mr. Carter again that afternoon to finalize the divorce paperwork. The process was unusually swift thanks to James's public role and the office's awareness of his affair. "Sarah," Mr. Carter said, handing me the forms, "you're doing the right thing. That program will make you a literature professor and a role model for women here. Don't let Willow Creek's gossip hold you back." His support was a lifeline in a town where women were expected to endure quietly. I knotted my throat tight. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I'm leaving for Cleveland in 3 days, then London." The words felt like a promise to myself, a vow to reclaim the life I'd lost. Back home, Emily sat on the living room floor, sorting her gummy bears by color. I watched her, my heart aching. In my past life, I chased after her when she cried, soothing her fears and promising the world. I saw how James had orchestrated her attachment to Olivia, using her to anchor me to this life. "Emily," I said softly, "why do you call Aunt Olivia Mommy?" She looked up, her blue eyes wide. "She's nice, Mommy. She gives me stuff and lets me do whatever I want." Her innocent but cutting words confirmed what I'd feared: Olivia's bribes had bought her loyalty. I nodded, swallowing the pain. "I'm glad you're happy, sweetie." But inside, I knew I had to let go. I'd board that plane to Oxford, leaving behind a town that judged me and a family that no longer felt like mine. The next evening, I sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor of our Willow Creek bedroom, surrounded by cardboard boxes. The air smelled of dust and old promises which lingered in the mementos I was sorting through. My Oxford certificate was packed in my suitcase, ready for my departure to Cleveland in 2 days, but I needed to clear out the remnants of my past life before I could fully embrace my future. In the 1980s in Ohio, women were expected to hold families together to cherish every scrap of domestic life, no matter how painful. But I was done clinging to memories that had turned to ash. I opened an old cigar box, and its wood had worn smoothly over time. Inside were James's love letters from our college days, written when we were both students at the community college. His handwriting, bold and looping, spilled across yellowed pages. Sarah, you're my forever, one read penned after a night we'd spent stargazing by Lake Erie. Another described our bike rides through Ohio's cornfields, his white shirt billowing like a sail, his laughter bright as the summer sun. When I'd caught the flu one winter, he'd driven his rickety three-wheeler to Cleveland's best candy shop, returning after dark with a bag of lemon drops, my favorite. He'd stood at my dorm door shivering but grinning, holding them out like trophies. "For you, Sarah," he'd said, kissing my forehead. I traced the words, my chest tightening. Those moments had felt eternal proof of a love I thought would last. But then Olivia entered our lives, a Yale graduate, beautiful and wealthy. Everything a small-town girl like me couldn't compete with. James's attention shifted, his warmth reserved for her. The lemon drops stopped, replaced by late nights working at the town hall, where I later learned he met Olivia. The love letters, once my treasure, now mocked me. I placed them back in the box with a ceramic heart from a county fair where James had won it for me, his first gift after Emily was born. There were photos to us at the county fair, Emily's first birthday, James's arm around me. I'd kept them all, believing they defined my worth. Now they felt like chains. I carried the box to the curb, leaving it beside the garbage cans under the streetlight's glow. The act was symbolic, a severance of the past. In my past life, I'd held on to these mementos, even as James and Olivia betrayed me, clinging to an expired love. I'd worked 3 jobs to pay off loans for his treatments, my hands calloused, my dreams buried under bills and exhaustion. James's parents had treated our home like a motel, demanding meals and clean laundry, while I struggled to keep Emily fed. Olivia had studied at Oxford, funded by my sacrifice, while I withered. This time, I wouldn't let nostalgia trap me. As I returned to the house, I passed the low brick wall by the neighbor's yard, where roses bloomed in the summer heat. Voices drifted over, James and Olivia talking in hushed tones. I froze, hiding behind the wall. Olivia's voice was tearful, manipulative. "James, why won't Sarah give me the Oxford spot? She's a community college grad. She can't even speak French." "What's she going to do there? You're dying and she doesn't care." James's voice was soothing. "Don't worry, Olivia. I'll convince her. Sarah always does what I ask." Olivia sniffled, then laughed, her tone shifting to smug. "You're too good to me, James." I heard the rustle of fabric, a kiss, and my stomach churned. I turned away, disgusted, my resolve hardening. They thought they could play me again, but I was no longer the naive wife who'd fallen for their lies. Back in the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, the silence heavy. The Oxford program wasn't just a chance to study literature, it was a path to becoming a professor, a career that could inspire other women in Willow Creek to dream beyond their kitchens. In the 1980s, America's such ambitions were radical, met with raised eyebrows and whispered gossip. But I'd seen my past life's end, dying in the street, betrayed and broken. I wouldn't let James and Olivia steal my future again. I locked the bedroom door, and my suitcase was ready. Tomorrow I'd confront James about his lies, but tonight I let go of the girl who'd believed in his love, prepared to become the woman I was meant to be. The air in our Willow Creek kitchen was thick with tension, the July 1980 heat seeping through the open windows. I stood at the counter chopping carrots for dinner, the rhythmic thud of the knife, a counterpoint to my racing thoughts. My Oxford Study Abroad certificate, tucked securely in my locked desk, was my lifeline to a future beyond the confines of this small Ohio town. In the 1980s, America, women like me, 28-year-old mothers with only a community college degree, were expected to prioritize family over ambition. The local diner buzzed with gossip about selfish women who left their husbands, and the church bulletin board featured articles on the virtues of domestic devotion. But I'd lived that life in my past once, which had cost me everything. James's fake cancer diagnosis and his affair with Olivia had drained my dreams, my health, and my identity. Reborn with the truth, this time I was ready to fight for myself. James sat at the formica table. His councilman's tie loosened his face, a mask of practiced sorrow. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, "you're really going through with this Oxford thing. I'm dying, and you're abandoning me and Emily." His words were a calculated jab meant to guilt me into compliance. In my past life, I'd crumbled, borrowing thousands to fund his treatments, while Olivia studied abroad on my sacrifice. Now I set the knife down, meeting his gaze with a cool stare. "Are you really dying, James?" I asked, my voice steady. "Let's go to the Cleveland Clinic tomorrow for a complete checkup, just to be sure." His eyes flickered, a flash of panic betraying him. "You don't trust me," he stammered, his tone defensive. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the counter. "I want to believe you, James, but I need proof. A second opinion won't hurt." In my past life, I'd never questioned his diagnosis, scrambling to save him while he and Olivia plotted behind my back. His hesitation now confirmed my suspicions. "Sarah," he said, forcing a laugh, "you're being paranoid. I'm disappointed in you." But his bravado faltered, and he stood abruptly, grabbing his jacket. "I've got a meeting at the town hall," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. I knew where he was going, straight to Olivia, to strategize their next move. The next morning, I drove to the Cleveland Clinic, alone, my heart pounding with dread and determination. I'd called ahead requesting a review of James's medical records, which he'd claimed were with a local doctor. The receptionist handed me a manila folder, and a kind-eyed physician, Dr. Patel, sat me down. "Mrs. Thompson," he said gently, "there's no record of a cancer diagnosis for your husband. 6 months ago, his last checkup showed he was in perfect health." The words hit like a thunderclap, confirming what I'd suspected, but still shaking me. James had lied, using a fake illness to manipulate me into giving up my Oxford spot for Olivia. I thanked Dr. Patel, clutching the report, my anger a burning coal in my chest. Back in Willow Creek, I confronted James in our living room. Emily was at a neighbor's, leaving us alone. I held up the medical report, my voice icy. "No cancer, James. You lied to me. You and Olivia planned this to steal my Oxford spot." His face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Sarah, it's not what you think," he stammered. I was scared. I cut him off, my voice rising. "Don't. I know everything, your affair, your lies, how you've been pushing Emily to call Olivia mom. We're done." His eyes widened, a mix of shame and fury flashing across his face. "You're overreacting," he snapped, regaining his composure. "You can't just walk away from our family." But I was already turning away, my suitcase half-packed in the bedroom. "Watch me," I said, my voice steady. He stormed out, slamming the door, leaving a hollow silence in his wake. In the 1980s in Ohio, divorce was a scandal, especially for a woman leaving a respected man like James. Neighbors would whisper and my mother would beg me to reconsider, but I'd seen the end of this road in my past life, 3 years of grueling work debt and betrayal, ending with my death under a truck's wheels. The Oxford program wasn't just a degree. It was a chance to become a literature professor and to inspire other women in a town that expected them to stay small. I'd filed for divorce through the city's personnel office, leveraging James's public role and his affair. Mr. Carter, the department head, had promised swift approval. As I packed, I vowed to board that plane to London no matter what James tried next. The following morning, July 1980, I woke to a quiet house in Willow Creek, the stillness that felt like the calm before a storm. My suitcase was packed, my Oxford certificate locked in my desk, ready for my departure to Cleveland tomorrow, then London. The divorce papers were signed, thanks to Mr. Carter's swift action at the city's personnel office. In the 1980s in Ohio, a woman leaving her husband was a bold act met with raised eyebrows and whispered gossip at the grocery store. "She's abandoning her daughter," they'd say, as if a mother's only role was to sacrifice. But I'd lived that sacrifice in my past life, working 3 jobs to pay off loans for James's fake treatments while Olivia studied abroad on my dime. I'd died, betrayed, my dreams stolen. This time I was taking them back. I reached for my desk key, heart pounding with anticipation, only to find the lock jimmied open. The certificate was gone. My blood ran cold. Only James had been in the house last night after our confrontation. He'd left in a fury, and I'd heard his car peel out toward the town hall where Olivia often lingered, her Yale pedigree and sleek confidence a magnet for his attention. I grabbed my purse and ran to my rusty Chevy, speeding toward James's office at the city hall. The summer heat shimmered off the asphalt, mirroring my anger. He'd stolen my future once. I wouldn't let him do it again. I pushed through the glass doors at the town hall, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. The receptionist, a gray-haired woman named Betty, looked up with a frown. "Sarah, you okay?" I nodded breathless and hurried toward James's office. Through the window, I saw him, his arm around Olivia, her blonde hair catching the light as she clutched my certificate. She kissed his cheek, her smile triumphant, then turned toward a taxi. My heart lurched. "James!" I shouted, bursting through the door. He spun, his face paling. "Sarah, what are you?" I pointed at Olivia, my voice shaking. "That's my certificate?" Olivia laughed, waving the paper mockingly. "It's mine now, Sarah. You don't belong at Oxford, you can't even read a French menu." She climbed into the taxi, the certificate still in her hand. I sprinted after her, my lungs burning as I pounded down the steps. "Stop!" I yelled, my voice echoing across the parking lot. The taxi's engine roared, kicking up dust and gravel that stung my eyes. I chased it down Main Street, my legs aching, passers-by staring as I screamed, "That's mine!" Olivia leaned out the window, her smirk vicious. "Better luck next time, Sarah." The taxi sped away, disappearing around a corner, leaving me gasping in the dust. I collapsed to my knees, my chest heaving, tears threatening to spill. In my past life, I'd let them win, giving up my dream to care for a man who'd betrayed me, and a daughter who'd called Olivia mom. The certificate wasn't just paper, it was my chance to study literature at Oxford, become a professor, and break free from Willow Creek's expectations that women stay home, cook, and obey. I stood wiping my face, my resolve hardening. James appeared behind me, his voice smug. "Sarah, stop chasing. Olivia's a better fit for Oxford. You're needed here with Emily and my parents." I turned, my eyes blazing. "You don't get to decide, James. That spot is mine, earned through years of night classes while you played house with Olivia." His smirk faltered, but he doubled down. "I'm your husband. What's yours is mine, including that certificate." His arrogance, cloaked in the entitlement of 1980s patriarchy, infuriated me. I stepped closer, my voice low. "Not anymore. We're divorced, and I'm taking back what's mine." Just then, Mr. Carter, the department head, approached, his face stern. "Sarah, why aren't you in Cleveland yet?" he asked, then turned to James. "And what gives you the right to provide a certificate to that girl?" James grabbed my wrist, his grip tight. "Sarah's staying. Her parents need her in the countryside. Olivia's a top student. She deserves it." Mr. Carter's eyes narrowed. "James, Sarah's divorce is final. The organization knows about your affair. That certificate belongs to her." I yanked my arm free, my heart pounding with defiance. The crowd of office workers gathering outside whispered their judgment, shifting from me to James. In that moment, I knew I'd fight until that certificate was back in my hands, no matter what it took. The July 1980 sun blazed over the Willow Creek Town Hall, its heat amplifying the tension in the parking lot where I stood facing James. My Oxford study abroad certificate, stolen by him and handed to his lover Olivia, had just disappeared in a taxi with her smug wave. My heart pounded not with despair, but with a fierce determination forged by my past life's betrayal. In the 1980s in Ohio, a woman leaving her husband for ambition was scandalous, a topic for whispered gossip at the diner or church socials. Women were expected to endure, to prioritize family over dreams, but I'd lived that life once, 3 years of grueling jobs, debt, and heartbreak, ending in my death under a truck's wheels. Reborn. I refused to let James and Olivia steal my future again, Mr. Carter, the department head, stood beside me, his face etched with disapproval as he addressed James. "What gives you the right to hand Sarah's certificate to that girl?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the gathering office workers. James, his councilman's composure cracking, gripped my wrist. "Sarah's staying," he insisted. "Her parents need her in the countryside. Olivia's a Yale graduate, so she's better suited for Oxford." His words dripped with the patriarchal entitlement of the era, as if my years of night classes to earn the literature program spot meant nothing compared to Olivia's pedigree. I yanked my arm free, my voice steady despite the burning fury. "I'm not staying, James. We're divorced, and that certificate is mine." Mr. Carter stepped forward, his authority silencing the crowd. "James, Sarah's divorce is final, and the organization has approved it due to your affair with Olivia. Her Oxford spot was earned through merit years of study while working and raising your daughter. You have no claim to it." The crowd's whispers shifted their judgment, turning toward James. A secretary muttered, "I saw him with that Yale girl who was nerdy at the cozy dive. Shameless." Another added, "Poor Sarah, slaving away while he fooled around." James's face reddened, but he doubled down. "I'm her husband. What's hers is mine, including that certificate." His arrogance, rooted in the 1980s belief that men controlled their wives' decisions, was infuriating. Mr. Carter's eyes narrowed. You're no husband, James. The organization knows about your indiscretions. Sarah's free to pursue her career. He turned to me, his tone firm but kind. Sarah, we've called the taxi company. They're bringing Olivia back. That certificate belongs to you. My chest tightened with gratitude. In a town quick to judge women for stepping out of line, Mr. Carter's support was a rare lifeline. Minutes later, the taxi screeched back into the lot and Olivia stepped out clutching my certificate. Her blonde hair was perfect, her designer skirt a stark contrast to my faded jeans, but her smug expression faltered as she saw the crowd. "What's this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Some farewell party for me." I stepped forward, my eyes locked on hers. "Please give me my certificate, Olivia." She laughed, waving it tauntingly. "You at Oxford. You're a community college nobody. This belongs to someone who can actually use it." Her words echoed the elitism I'd faced in my past life when her wealth and education had overshadowed my hard-earned achievements. Mr. Carter intervened, his voice like steel. "Miss Reynolds, you've stolen Sarah's property. The Oxford program doesn't recognize you, and neither do we. Hand it over." Olivia's smirk vanished, her eyes darting to James for support. He looked away, his confidence crumbling under the crowd's scrutiny. I stepped closer, my voice low. "You knew James was married. You used him to take what's mine. Give it back." Her hand trembled, but she clutched the certificate tighter, her arrogance a fragile shield. The crowd's murmurs grew. Willow Creek's conservative values condemned affairs, and Olivia's role as the other woman was a disgrace. A maintenance worker muttered, "She's got no shame parading around with a married man." Olivia's face flushed, but she snapped, "I'm a Yale grad, I deserve this more than her." Her defiance only fueled the crowd's disdain. Mr. Carter signaled to a security guard who approached Olivia. "Ma'am, return the certificate or we'll involve the police." Reluctantly, she thrust it toward me, her eyes blazing with resentment. I took it, my hands steady, feeling the weight of my reclaimed future. The crowd's whispers faded, replaced by a quiet respect. In 1980s, America standing up to a powerful man and his mistress was no small feat. I held the certificate close, knowing this was only the beginning of my fight. The Willow Creek Town Hall parking lot buzzed with tension as I clutched my reclaimed Oxford certificate, its edges crisp against my fingers. The July 1980 sun beat down, reflecting off the asphalt and illuminating Olivia's furious expression. She stood by the taxi, her designer heels planted firmly, her blonde hair catching the light like a halo she didn't deserve. James hovered nearby, his face a mix of shame and defiance, his councilman's polish tarnished by the crowd's judgmental stares. In the 1980s in Ohio, an affair was a scandal, especially for a public figure like James. The town's conservative values, rooted in church sermons and community potlucks, branded Olivia as a homewrecker. This label carried weight in a place where women were expected to uphold family honor, not destroy it. Olivia's eyes locked on mine, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you've won, Sarah? You're a nobody, a community college grad who can't even pronounce Oxford. I'm the one who belongs there." Her words stung, echoing the elitism I'd faced in my past life when her wealth and Yale degree had overshadowed my years of night classes. I stepped forward, the certificate firm in my grip. "You stole this because you knew I earned it," I said, my voice steady. "You used James to take what's mine, but it's over." The crowd, a mix of office workers and passers-by, murmured in agreement. A librarian whispered, "She's got guts standing up to them both." Mr. Carter, the department head, stood firm. "Miss Reynolds, your actions are theft, plain and simple. The Oxford program is Sarah's earned through merit. You have no claim." Olivia's face twisted, her arrogance unraveling. She turned to James, her voice sharp. "Do something, James. You promised me." But James's eyes dropped, his silence a betrayal of her too. Enraged, Olivia lunged at me, her manicured nails clawing for the certificate. "It's mine!" she screamed. I stepped back, but she pulled a pocket knife from her purse, its blade glinting in the sunlight. The crowd gasped, and I froze, my heart pounding. In my past life, I'd been too broken to fight back. Now I braced myself, ready to defend what was mine. Before the blade could reach me, James grabbed Olivia's arm, wrenching her back. The knife slashed his hand, blood dripping onto the asphalt. "Olivia, stop!" he shouted, his voice raw with shock. She stumbled, the knife clattering to the ground, her composure shattered. "You're nothing without me," she spat at him, her voice venomous. "I only got close to you regarding your status. For this certificate, you're useless now." The crowd fell silent, stunned by her admission. James stared at her, his face ashen as if seeing her for the first time. In my past life, I'd never witnessed this Olivia's true motives laid bare. her manipulation exposed not just to me, but to everyone. Two police officers, alerted by Mr. Carter, pushed through the crowd. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault and theft," one said, cuffing Olivia's wrists as she protested, her voice shrill. "You can't do this. I'm a Yale graduate," but her credentials meant nothing now. The crowd's whispers turned to scorn their conservative values, condemning her as a thief and a mistress. As the officers led her to a patrol car, she glared at me, her eyes burning with hatred. "You'll regret this, Sarah," she hissed. I met her gaze, unflinching. "No, Olivia. You will." James, clutching his bleeding hand, stepped toward me, his voice pleading. "Sarah, I was wrong. I didn't know she was using me. Please don't leave me. We can fix this." His desperation, so different from the arrogance of my past life, stirred nothing in me. I remembered the years I'd spent slaving for his fake illness, the debt, the exhaustion, the moment Emily called Olivia Mom, while James kissed her. "We're divorced, James," I said coldly. "You chose this. Live with it." He flinched, blood dripping through his fingers, but I turned away the certificate, a beacon of my future. Mr. Carter placed a hand on my shoulder. "Sarah, get to Cleveland tomorrow. Oxford's waiting. You've earned this, and no one, not James, not Olivia, can take it from you." His support, rare for a woman defying 1980s norms, strengthened me. The crowd dispersed their murmurs, a mix of awe and judgment, but I didn't care. In my past life, I'd died in Willow Creek's shadows, betrayed and broken. Now I stood in the sunlight, my future in my hands. The police car drove off with Olivia, and James stood alone, his world crumbling. I walked away, ready to board that plane to London, to a life where I'd finally live for myself. The Willow Creek dusk cast long shadows across the staff dormitory where I'd moved my suitcase packed for my flight to Cleveland, then London tomorrow. It was July 1980, and the air smelled of cut grass and impending change. My Oxford Study Abroad certificate, reclaimed from Olivia's grasp, rested safely in my bag, symbolizing the future I'd fought for. In the 1980s in Ohio, a woman leaving her husband and daughter for a career was unthinkable, a betrayal of the era's unspoken rules. Church potlucks buzzed with gossip about wayward wives, and my mother's voice echoed from our last call. "Sarah, think of Emily. A mother doesn't abandon her child." But I'd lived that life before, 3 years of grueling jobs, debt, and heartbreak, all for a husband who'd faked cancer and a daughter who'd called his lover Mom. Reborn, I knew staying would mean losing myself again. As I folded my clothes, a knock rattled the dorm door. I opened it to find James, his hand bandaged from Olivia's knife attack, his face etched with desperation. Behind him stood Emily, her pigtails drooping, and his parents, their expressions a mix of disapproval and pity. Emily's blue eyes, so like mine, shimmered with tears. "Mommy," she choked out, clutching a stuffed bunny I'd sewn for her. "I'm sorry, but I called Aunt Olivia Mom. I won't do it again. Please don't leave us." Her words pierced me, a reminder of the love I'd once poured into her nights spent soothing her fevers, crafting her Halloween costumes, reading her stories despite my exhaustion. In my past life, I'd have run to her promising everything would be okay. Now the pain of her betrayal lingered, her preference for Olivia's candy-fueled indulgence, a wound too fresh. James knelt beside her, his voice pleading. "Sarah, I was wrong about Olivia. I thought she cared, but she used me. Let's fix this, be a family again." His parents nodded, his mother adding, "You're Emily's mother, Sarah. You belong with her." Their words echoed 1980s America's expectations, where a woman's worth was tied to her family, not her dreams. But I saw through James's remorse. It was born of loss, not love. He'd manipulated Emily, encouraged her to see Olivia as a mother, and lied about cancer to steal my Oxford spot. I hardened my heart meeting his gaze. "James, we're divorced. You chose Olivia, and Emily chose her too. You don't get to beg now." Emily sobbed, clinging to James's leg. "Mommy, please, I don't want Aunt Olivia. I want you." Her voice cracked, and for a moment I wavered. In my past life, I'd adored Emily, sacrificing everything for her smile, but her calls of Mommy Olivia had shattered that bond, a reminder that love alone couldn't hold a family together when trust was gone. I knelt, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Emily, you'll live with Daddy and your grandparents. They'll take care of you. I'm going to Oxford to become a teacher and to make a life for myself." She wailed, burying her face in James's shirt, and his parents gasped, their disapproval palpable. "You're abandoning your child," his mother hissed. "What kind of woman does that?" I stood, my voice firm. "The kind who knows she deserves more." In the 1980s, in Ohio, single mothers faced harsh judgment. their choices scrutinized by a community that valued conformity over courage. But I'd seen my past life's end dying, betrayed my dreams stolen. I wouldn't repeat it. I grabbed my suitcase, the certificate inside, and walked past them, their stunned silence ringing in my ears. James called after me, "Sarah, please." But I didn't look back. The dorm hallway stretched before me, a path to freedom. That night I boarded the flight to London. The plane's hum promised a new beginning. Over the next 3 years at Oxford, I thrived. I studied literature in ancient halls, debated Shakespeare with scholars, and formed friendships with women who, like me, defied expectations. Late-night talks over tea healed the wounds of Willow Creek, teaching me to value myself beyond the roles of wife and mother. I learned French, mastered literary theory, and became a confident scholar ready to return as a professor. The pain of leaving Emily lingered, but I knew it was the price of reclaiming my life. As the plane lifted, I left Willow Creek's judgment behind, ready to live for myself. In July 1983, I stepped off a plane in Cleveland, my Oxford degree in hand, greeted by a warm Ohio breeze and a banner from the Willow Creek Library, "Welcome home, Professor Sarah Thompson." The crowd of colleagues and students clapped their smiles, starkly contrasting to the judgment I'd faced 3 years ago. In the 1980s, America women were breaking barriers, entering boardrooms, earning degrees, challenging the notion that their place was solely at home. My journey to Oxford, a state-sponsored program to train educators, had made me a symbol of that change, a community college graduate who defied expectations to become a literature professor. I stood taller, my confidence forged in Oxford's lecture halls, no longer the naive wife who'd died betrayed in my past life. At the celebratory dinner in the library's community room, colleagues toasted my success, their voices warm with pride. "Sarah, you're an inspiration," said Mr. Carter, the department head who'd supported my divorce and Oxford journey. "You've shown Willow Creek what women can do." I smiled, sipping my coffee, but my thoughts drifted to the past. In my previous life, I'd slaved for 3 years to pay off loans for James's fake cancer treatments, my dreams crushed under debt and betrayal. Emily, my daughter, had called Olivia mom, and I'd died in a truck accident, my sacrifice meaningless. Reborn, I'd reclaim my future, but the cost leaving Emily still weighed on me. Someone at the table mentioned James, and the room quieted. "He's not the same," a coworker said. After the scandal with Olivia, the city council demoted him to a desk job in a rural county. "He's been drinking withdrawn." I nodded, feeling no satisfaction. James's affair and lies had cost him his reputation, a severe blow in 1980s Ohio, where public figures were held to high moral standards. His parents, who'd once treated our home like a hotel, now cared for Emily in the countryside. "She's okay," another colleague added, sensing my thoughts. "Not spoiled like before, but she's not the carefree kid she was." My heart ached. Emily, now 9, had been manipulated by James and Olivia, and her preference for Olivia's gifts was a child's response to indulgence. I'd left her to save myself, but I hoped she'd one day understand. As for Olivia, her fate was bleaker. "She's in prison," Mr. Carter said, his voice low. "Convicted of assault for that knife attack. She was arrogant, lording her Yale degree over the other inmates. They didn't take kindly to it. She was beaten badly, left disabled." I stared at my plate, the news settling like a stone. In my past life, Olivia had thrived at Oxford, funded by my sacrifice while I withered. Now her greed and violence had trapped her in a different kind of prison. I felt no joy, only a quiet relief that justice had found her. The dinner continued, laughter filling the room, but I sat in reflection. My 3 years at Oxford had transformed me. I'd walked cobbled streets, discussed poetry with scholars, and found a community that valued my mind, not my role as a wife or mother. I'd learned to forgive myself for leaving Emily, recognizing that staying would have meant losing myself. In the 1980s, women like me were redefining our paths in America. I was one of them, ready to teach literature at the community college, inspiring students to dream beyond Willow Creek's limits. The pain of my past, James's betrayal, Emily's rejection, the grinding years of debt, was a distant memory washed away by time and choice. As I drove home under the Ohio stars, I thought of Emily. I'd written her letters from Oxford, simple notes about my studies, hoping she'd read them one day. Perhaps she'd grow to see why I left to chase her own dreams without guilt. For now, I parked outside my new apartment, and the night was quiet except for crickets. I was no longer the Sarah who died in the street, broken and betrayed. I was a professor, a woman who'd chosen herself, ready for a bright future with possibilities. The sorrows of my past life belonged in the shadows I'd left behind.